There's a man in your city right now driving a leased BMW, wearing a watch he financed in installments, living in a house the bank technically owns, and telling people at dinner parties that he is doing really well. He is not lying exactly. He just has not done the math. And here is the uncomfortable part. He is not unusual. He is the norm. He is what the modern economy was specifically designed to produce. Because at some point in the last 50 years, we quietly stopped rewarding people for being wealthy. We started rewarding them for looking wealthy. And we built an entire financial infrastructure to make sure they could keep doing it indefinitely. This is the story of how that happened, and why the gap between the two, between being rich and looking rich, has never been wider or more dangerous than it is right now. Let us start with something that sounds simple but almost nobody actually tracks. Net worth. What you own minus what you owe. Assets minus liabilities. That is the whole equation. Now here is a question. If you had to guess the net worth of the average American household earning between $100,000 and $150,000 a year, what would you say? Take a second. The answer, according to Federal Reserve data, is around $380,000. That sounds comfortable, reasonable even, until you find out that more than half of that is home equity, and that the median liquid savings, actual accessible money, not locked inside property or retirement accounts, sits at roughly $8,000. $8,000 for a household earning six figures. That is not wealth. That is a 3-month buffer. That is one medical bill, one transmission failure, one layoff notice away from serious trouble. So how does a household earning over $100,000 a year end up cash poor? You already know the answer, even if you have not said it out loud yet. They spent it looking rich. To understand how this happens systemically, you need to understand something most people are never taught directly. Wealth and income are not the same thing. Income is what flows in. Wealth is what stays. And between what flows in and what stays, there is an enormous, beautifully engineered system designed to intercept as much of it as possible before it ever gets the chance to compound. It is not a conspiracy. It is just commerce. But the effect is the same. Here is how it works. The moment your income crosses a certain threshold, you become visible, not to your friends, to the market. Credit card companies, automobile manufacturers, luxury brands, mortgage lenders. They know your income band. They know your zip code. They know your browsing history. And they know, statistically, how much money you are willing to spend to be perceived as successful. They have done the research. The number is higher than you would expect. So they come at you from every direction, all carrying the same quiet message. You have earned this. You deserve this. You work hard. Why not enjoy it? A new car. Just $799 a month. A kitchen renovation. 18 months no interest. A holiday. Put it on the card. Pay it off when you get back. None of those things are inherently wrong. But here is the mechanism. Every single one of them converts future income into present consumption. They pull forward money you have not made yet, turn it into something visible, something that signals status, and leave you with a monthly obligation that quietly and permanently limits your ability to build anything real. This is sometimes called lifestyle creep. But that word makes it sound accidental. It is not. It is a deliberate feature of the consumer economy. The entire business model of dozens of industries depends on it working exactly as described. Now let us run the numbers, because this is where the abstract becomes genuinely uncomfortable. Say you are 30 years old, earning $90,000 a year. You have a car payment of $600 a month, a mortgage that stretches you slightly, a credit card balance you do not fully clear each month, and a lifestyle, dining, travel, the occasional upgrade, that costs roughly $1,500 more per month than you strictly need to spend. Nothing outrageous, nothing unusual, nothing that would raise eyebrows. Now take just the car payment. $600 a month over 5 years is $36,000. Invested instead at a modest 7% average annual return, that same money becomes roughly $43,000 by the end of the loan term. Compound that over 30 years, because at 30, you have 30 years until conventional retirement. And that single car payment decision, made once, represents a difference of approximately $250,000 in net worth by the time you are 60. One car, one decision, $250,000. Now multiply that logic across every other decision. The kitchen that did not need renovating. The subscription services quietly bleeding $40 here, $25 there. The phone upgrade every 12 months. The holidays on credit. None of those individual decisions is catastrophic, but they compound in the wrong direction. Every dollar spent on appearances today is a future dollar that never got to grow. Wealthy people understand this intuitively. People who look wealthy, by definition, do not. Here is the part that rarely makes it into the conversation. Looking rich is expensive. Being actually rich tends to be cheap. Think about the genuinely wealthy people you have heard of, not the ones who perform wealth, but the ones who quietly accumulated it. Warren Buffett has lived in the same house in Omaha he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA and for decades one of the wealthiest people in European history, flew economy class into his late 70s and reportedly drove a 15-year-old Volvo as a matter of routine. These are not quirky eccentricities. They are symptoms of a structural reality. When you are genuinely wealthy, you have nothing to prove. The anxiety that drives conspicuous consumption, the need to be seen, validated, to signal that you have arrived, simply is not present because it has been resolved, not by spending, by accumulating. Genuine wealth closes the gap between who you are and who you feel you need to appear to be. Fake wealth just rents the view from the other side of it, and the market understands this dynamic perfectly. That is why luxury brands do not sell products. They sell the emotional state that wealth produces without requiring you to actually have the wealth. They are extraordinarily efficient at this and extraordinarily profitable. Social media gets 60 seconds here because it matters and because we all already know this. And yet it keeps working on all of us anyway. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok are, by architecture, highlight reels of peak consumption. The cars, the hotels, the watch collections, the penthouses. And the algorithm does not surface restraint. It surfaces aspiration. It shows you the thing that makes you feel the gap. Because feeling the gap keeps you scrolling. And keeping you scrolling is the entire business model. There is a well-documented concept in psychology called social comparison theory. Humans continuously evaluate their own standing relative to others, and that comparison drives behavior. This is not new. It is ancient wiring. But it has never been deployed at this scale, with this precision, toward this specific commercial end. You see something, you feel the gap, you buy the thing, and none of it is entirely irrational. Signaling does produce real-world returns in certain contexts. The right presentation in the right room genuinely opens certain doors. Status signals have measurable effects. But there is a threshold, a point at which the cost of the signal exceeds the value the signal returns. Most people blow past that threshold quietly, steadily, before they have noticed it exists. Zoom out now, because this stops being a personal finance story and becomes something larger. Total American household debt currently sits above $17 trillion. Consumer credit alone, credit cards, auto loans, personal loans, not including mortgages, accounts for roughly $5 trillion of that. These are not emergency numbers. These are not numbers from a recession or a financial crisis. These are the baseline numbers. This is what the system looks like when it is functioning as designed. A significant portion of the modern economy is now structurally dependent on people spending beyond their means. Retail, automotive, hospitality, financial services. If Americans suddenly adopted the savings rates of previous generations, if they stopped systematically converting future income into present consumption, the GDP impact would be severe enough to constitute an economic contraction, which creates an interesting and slightly troubling observation. The behavior that is individually destructive turns out to be collectively load-bearing. We have built an economy that functionally requires people to look richer than they are in order to keep operating. The nudge toward consumption is not just advertising. It is not just social pressure. It is baked into the architecture of growth itself. That is not an excuse to comply, but it is a reason to understand why the pressure is this persistent, this omnidirectional, and this difficult to simply ignore your way out of. Here is what this looks like when the bill eventually comes due. The average American retires with approximately $88,000 in savings. In a country where a one-bedroom